It's gonna be a hard topic. Once again, let me do a one more one of these. Also, just so you know, notifications for bits and subs and follows are going to be off while we talk about this. If you're questioning whether or not you're in the right mental state to hear about some of this stuff, just as you know, we're going to be hearing from some of the kids who survived after being locked in that classroom for the better part of an hour with the shooter. We're going to be hearing about people who had to pick up their relatives out of the classroom and had to see what happened. We're going to be going over that stuff. Nothing is going to be too incredibly detailed. In the sense of there's not going to be any like crazy graphic retellings or anything, but you're going to hear about what happened. You're going to hear about situations that could have been helped, but weren't, that led to children dying, and things along those lines. And if you are not prepared to hear about some of this stuff, I implore you to protect your mental health and back away for a little bit, as well as I would also implore you to keep up with this story. And when you think that you are capable of doing so, or if you think that you'd be better taking it in little bursts, the video will always be here for you when you're ready to come back and pick it up again and put it down as need be. It is important. It is sad, but as it is as important as it is tragic, because when these things happen, our policies and our society is the thing that took these kids' lives from them. So the least that we can do to respect them is to look at what happened to lead to the situation, and in the first place, as unfortunate as it is. So if you're okay with that and you're still going to stick around and you want to hear about this issue and what we can do about it, how it came about, what happened when it happened, and what we can do after it has happened now. Can I get a yeehaw? Chat, can I get a yeehaw if you are ready? About a week ago, as of this recording, there was a shooting that took place. A very, very bad one. Actually, it was the second worst school shooting that this country has ever seen. Only after the Sandy Hook shooting, which killed, if I remember correctly, 26 people. This shooting was just behind there at 21 people whose lives were ended, most of them children, most of them under 15. There were 19 kids and 2 teachers who died in the attack, as well as 2 police officers who got shot. We're going to be talking about that. But before we get into exactly what happened there's a couple of things that I want to show you about what happened, about like what's going on in the country before we dig down into what happened here exactly. And so I want you to take a look at this really quick. And this is a very interesting statistic, okay? And so what you're looking at right here are how many school shootings have taken place in these countries by the year 2022. And so as you can see here in the United States, we are big roller at 288 school shootings that have occurred. Mexico's the only one even close to us, which is the closest next one, which is only at 8. In Mexico, the country where the drug cartel holds like substantial like land of the country, they don't even have that many school shootings. South Africa had 6, India at 5, Nigeria at 4, Pakistan and Afghanistan at 4 and 3. And honestly, I would even say that most schools that have been hit with like gunfire or like bombs or anything have occurred due to like the US involvement and not like domestic terrorism like we have. And as you can see, there's only been a couple of other countries in the world, in the hundreds in the world, that have experienced any school shootings whatsoever. And the last one comes down to China, and ever since, and there have been literally 0 school shootings. So you'll hear a lot of people say there's almost nothing that we can do to stop this. It seems like the only country in the world where this happens really is the only one that keeps telling people that there's nothing that we can do to stop it, right? And a lot of people talk about how that's been done up by conservatives. They're a big part of the reason why it's that bad, and that's true. but you don't want to lump in like literally every single conservative in there, because we'll talk about it a little bit in the future, but people have a hierarchy of what they really care about, and so things, even if they agree with some ideas that we have when it comes to guns, that may not be very high on their list of things that they talk about, because this area, Uvalde, is where the shooting happened, in Uvalde County, in the Robb Elementary High School. An elementary school is what was shot up. This is a conservative area. You can take a look here, where we can take a look here at the 2020 election results for the presidential level, and I think here Uvalde should be just left of San Antonio. Here it is, where Trump won 59% of the vote. So this is a Republican area through and through, little conservative neighborhood. And this is the type of place, not only it is just like your average type of conservative neighborhood, right? Where they love the police. They absolutely love the police. That's Uvalde's finest. That's their absolute cream of the crop. They keep them safe. They told themselves that the police did. The police kept them safe. And it's very easy to love the police when all they're really doing is throwing Hispanic people in jail for crossing the border, and giving people prison sentences for having dime bags of weed. It's really easy to do things like you see in a lot of conservative areas, where police officers get like free meals. They get complimentary haircuts at salons. They get cheered at local like music events, and they get thanked for all the hard work that they do to keep their area safe. And all of that and their conservative values are going to have come into collision with the reality of the situation. That is how the police failed to protect them, and failed so horribly that they allowed this shooting to be the second worst shooting in American history, in a small town that nobody even knew existed until about a week ago. As in all small Texas towns, law enforcement officers here eat free local taqueries. Oh my gosh. On some days, and get complimentary haircuts at the neighborhood salons, and others. Residents say increased activity from cartels trafficking drugs across southwestern Texas has made them increasingly reliant on Border Patrol and the county sheriff's department for safety. In a tight-knit community where Border Patrol, police, and state troopers are recognized not just as heroes, but as cousins, aunts, and uncles, that steadfast support for law enforcement in Uvalde has quickly become complicated. Some first responders are facing intense scrutiny and mounting criticism from state officials and the American public over what is largely perceived as a delayed reaction to last week's deadly shooting, which is the deadliest shooting in Texas's entire history of being a state. And before we get to exactly what happened, I would like to go over a little bit of statistics as well. Okay. Yeah, I bet that's going to stop. It's definitely going to slow down how well the police are treated when it comes to them being like heroes after all of this. I want to take a look at this because NPR put this out, and it's very interesting. 100 people are killed by guns in every single day in the US. 24 hours goes by. On average, 100 human beings have been killed by guns. 12 children die every day due to guns. 12 whole children every single day get shot. 950 shootings since Sandy Hook. So this isn't like in total in the country. This is 950 since Sandy Hook. Since Sandy Hook was 2014, is that right? 2012. And there have been 27 already this year. We're not even halfway through the year yet, and there have been 27 school shootings. And just today, as of this recording, there was another one. An elderly woman was just killed today at a high school graduation shooting. As of this moment, only one person has died and 2 other people have been shot. There is an elderly woman who all she wanted to do was watch her family graduate, and this is what ended her life. Because apparently in this country, it's too much to ask for to even go to a graduation these days without getting shot. How can you not be doomer right now? We'll get to that. 8 million AR-15s are in circulation right now. That's more than the population of several states. 9 out of 10 people who attempt suicide with a gun die. 89% of gun owners say that they want the mentally ill, whatever that means. They want to stop them from being able to purchase guns. That's a start, right? 77% are in favor of background checks, and 54% of gun deaths are suicides, with 43% being murders. And less than 1% of people who defended themselves with a gun in violent crimes. Less than 1% of violent crimes are stopped with a gun. So obviously they don't do that much work to actually save people. Less than 1%. This is just the facts that comes with guns. They just cause more issues than I think that they're worth. Even as someone who doesn't even want to take away guns completely, you have to come to the realization, unless you're just completely delusional, that guns cause more issues than they fix. And if you're not ready to accept that, you're not ready to have a real adult conversation about guns in this country yet. So let's actually see what happened. All right. And so we have this timeline here, and I'm going to check this one more time to make sure there isn't anything too crazy on here. So we're going to check this timeline right here to see what actually happened. Actually happened. I'm going to give you like air quotes there during the Uvalde shooting. So this is the police's timeline. And I will say, as we're going to figure out, you should be very wary about what the police actually say here, because apparently they cannot be trusted when it comes to what they have to say about how they handled this situation. In a news conference on Friday, Stephen McCraw, director of Texas's Department of Public Safety, offered a more detailed timeline of the events of the shooting that happened at Robert Elementary School. And so what happened, right? An updated sequence of events is an updated sequence of events, okay? So this isn't the original sequence of events. The police sought to explain an hour-long gap in which law enforcement officials entered the school but did not engage the gunman. Mr. McCraw also revised facts about the shooting previously stated from other officials. What follows is the timeline he laid out, including his account of several 911 calls that were made. Okay, so this is an overhead view of the school. What happened is that the gunman originally was showing signs that they were going to do something crazy, right? They took a picture of themselves holding a bag of dead cats. Once again, I can't tell you. I can't show you that picture, but if you look for it, you can find it. He spent time killing neighborhood cats and collecting them in bags, which if that doesn't tell you that there's something incredibly wrong with this person, I'm not sure what would. He made private Facebook messages to friends, and if you look into the story, you're going to hear from one of those friends that he met, one of those online friends that he met from a month earlier, how he took pictures and said he has a little secret that he's going to be doing something real crazy with the 2 AR-15s that he bought about a week earlier before the shooting, and 60 magazines, that he had on his person when he went into the school. So this wasn't like a small thing. This is very, very well planned. So the guy who lived with the guy who did the shooting, he actually lived with his grandparents, his grandfather and his grandmother, and he was on the phone actually with one of his friends before about 15 minutes before the shooting took place, where he said that he was not going to tell her what he was going to do until his grandfather left the house. And so his grandfather leaves. He then shoots his grandma in the face with the AR that he got. This all happened at 11:28 a.m. Okay. At the same time, 2 men at the funeral home across the street hear a truck crash. They run towards the truck to see the suspect exit with a gun and a backpack. The men flee as the gunman fires upon them, but misses. One of them falls while running, but both of them make it back to the funeral home. The gunman travels on foot towards the school. Okay. The teacher appears on video outside the school, now talking on the phone with the police. Apparently, we're going to get back to this woman. Her involvement is going to be important. when especially when it comes to the police. We're going to be talking about that in a moment. 3 minutes later, a witness who called 911, possibly a teacher, says the vehicle is crashed and there's a man with a gun there. At 11:31. Now in the school parking lot, the gunman begins shooting at the school. So he's shooting just straight at the school right now. Okay. While he's outside, not even in the school yet. He was hiding among some of the cars. He was there at the school and he started firing bullets at the school. Police know that he's there now. They've gotten multiple calls. There's a gunman loose. He was in the truck. He's at Robb Elementary. They know that he's there by 11:31. Remember that. Meanwhile, patrol vehicle arrives at the funeral home. An officer drives into the school parking lot, passing the gunman, and eventually confronts somebody at the parking lot who turns out to be a teacher. And so one thing that they didn't mention here that came out after this was actually written. So this is another time that the police told their story. So just so you know, we haven't even gotten into the school shooting itself yet. And there have now been 3 times where the police's story has changed again. So this patrol vehicle that arrives at the funeral home, this is actually the designated police officer for Robb Elementary. This is their police officer. This is their resource officer that's supposed to protect the school. I remember back when I was in high school, we had a resource officer as well, Officer Ramsey. I like Officer Ramsey. He was a cool guy. Who stayed in the who stayed in the office a lot, and he did a lot of this work with checking with people coming in and out. So this patrol officer who was supposed to be at the school wasn't even actually at the school, and he rushed back and he met the teacher, and he thought the teacher, at the moment in that second, he thought the teacher may have been one of the suspects, and he started asking the teacher while the guy was hiding after he shot bullets at the school. An officer drives into the school parking lot, passing by the gunman, eventually confronts the teacher, right? And just so you know, if you remember, who remembers when this story came out? And you heard that the police said that when he got to the school, he was engaged by officers. Do you remember that? Because this is almost like a day or the day when this story broke, when this came out, is that the police were like, we had officers there. They were shooting at him, and they were scared. They were worried. One part of the story that changed is that they were worried because he had a bulletproof vest on, is what they said. Okay. And so they said 2 officers saw him outside of the school. They exchanged gunfire. 2 of them got shot, and they backed up. And then he entered the school. And then they were worried about going in for him because they thought that he had a bulletproof vest on. Just so you know, it came out that he actually didn't have a bulletproof vest on whatsoever. He had a plate carrier. So he had the bulletproof fabric part on, but he didn't have any of the, bulletproof part of the bulletproof vest on. And so they didn't go in to stop him, and they just let him go about his business with killing children, basically, because they were too scared that they may get shot. So that story, so just so you know, the story from our brave officers engaged with him outside the school and slowed him down. So we're so thankful that they did all that work, because this could have been so much work. That heroic story changed to police were slow to engage with the gunman because they could have gotten shot, the official says. So let's just take this into our minds for a moment, okay? So the police see that there is a man with what they suspect to be a bulletproof vest on, walking into an elementary school with a gun, and they go, guys, we should back up. What if he shoots us? And so instead of going in and stopping the guy from shooting kids, they back up and they're like, oh, this is too scary. What happens if we get hit? That'd be so sad. And so they just, there's not too much difference between this and basically using children as human shields, right? What do you guys think? Is there much difference between backing up and letting him walk into the school with a gun and using kids as because you're scared of getting shot, and using children as a human shield? Is there that much difference? Because I honestly think that the answer is no. There's not too much different there. When their training specifically tells them to rush in, just so you know, police training tells them, we've known about all this since Columbine, okay? Police training says specifically, If you're in a situation, it doesn't matter what's going on. It doesn't matter how many of them there are. It doesn't matter what you have. If you're a cop and you have a gun on you, you run in and you try to stop them. At least you engage them, because if they're busy worrying about you, they're not busy mowing down children. But instead, they decided to back up and stay backed up for a good amount of time. And if you're wondering how much time, about 40 minutes passed. 40 minutes between him entering the school and them shooting him. 40 whole minutes. I actually personally think that that's a very long time. Yeah, too scared of doing your job. Apparently, their job is so difficult that they don't even want to do it when it's time. And just on that statistic, hold that in your mind. Just hold that in your head, because we're going to get back to that in a moment, okay? More shots were fired. At 11:33, the suspect enters the school and walks down the hallway towards the classroom 111 and 112, which are connected by a bathroom, and fires more than 100 rounds. So this is a semi-automatic weapon, okay? So this isn't a weapon where you hold down the trigger and it just fires bullets. He specifically pulled the trigger on every single one of those. That takes time. So as he's firing 100 bullets, what are the police doing? We'll get to it. 3 Uvalde police department officers entered the school through the same door used by the gunman, and 2 were grazed by gunfire. 4 more officers later entered the building, including the deputy county sheriff. Both doors into the adjoining classroom where the gunman was located were locked at the time. 11:37. Another 16 rounds were fired. This is a big 20-minute gap where who knows what's happening. Just about a 20-minute gap. Who knows what's happening here? The police sergeant and other law enforcement agents start to arrive. And now here's another big gap at 12:03. By this time, as many as 19 officers had gathered in the school hallway. A student calls 911 and whispers that she's in room 112. The call lasts for 1 minute and 23 seconds. Okay? And so this is a long time of them just sitting in the hallway, not getting into that room and helping the kids. Okay? Multiple kids called the police. If I remember correctly, the police were being called about once every 3 minutes. About there. That many calls were coming in. So they knew what was happening. Many kids have called in from them in the classroom, laying in the classroom, pretending to be dead, hiding under tables, as the shooter walks around looking for more kids to shoot and keeping an eye on the cops as they stood around doing, I don't want to say nothing, because they were doing something. What they were doing was stopping parents from getting their kids. And when this happened, I want to circle back on this, okay? Nothing would have actually been better. Like, honestly, if the police's response to this shooting was so bad that if they literally didn't show up, there would have been some kids who may have actually been saved. Here, I want you to see this. Cops stood outside the school while the killer rampaged inside. Onlookers yelled at them to go in. They didn't. One parent urged, "Let's just rush in because the cops aren't doing anything." So many parents rushed to the school when they heard that this was going on. Once again, this is a pretty small town. All right. So they dropped everything. They came off of work. They were rushing to the school to make sure that their kids were okay. And there are lots of people. And this person who said this specifically, his daughter died in that classroom. His daughter was shot in that classroom. Right. And he was like, let's rush in to do something because the cops aren't doing anything. And actually the cops are doing less than nothing, because this is what the cops were doing. So here's a person, this, just so you know, this is not a shooter. This is not a gun-toting maniac killing children and teachers. This is a scared parent who wanted to go and get their kid out of an active shooting situation, but the cops tackled him, handcuffed him, stopped him from going in. There was another woman who was also handcuffed. We can talk about her in a moment. They were taking down parents. Yes, they weren't taking down the shooter. Once again, there's a 40-minute gap between when the cops entered the school and when they killed the shooter. 40 minutes, almost an entire hour. And during that almost entire hour, this is what the police were doing. They were busy pepper spraying, baton clubbing, handcuffing, and tackling parents.
Y'all should have fucking treated that motherfucker like that. What the fuck you doing to him?
And so here's this officer just standing here with a taser. So all of these officers are doing way more to stop parents from getting their kids than they are from stopping a shooter from killing their children. Just so you know, just so you want to know what's going on. And just to make sure that we all understand, Uvalde's police budget takes up 40% of the county's budget. 40%. So almost half of all of the money that these people pay goes to these cops that are doing nothing while their kids are dying in school. So as you can see, the police have already set up a perimeter. So in the time that they spent with the gunman locked in that classroom, they set up a perimeter. They made sure nobody could get in, get out. They put up their caution tape, and that's what they did. Now you may be wondering, why did they do this and not do, I don't know, anything else regarding the I don't know, like their job, like going in and stopping him? Well, actually, Command, the police station that works in Uvalde, has only been in existence for about 4 years. And the police chief who's been working there has not had experience of being a big police chief of a city for a while. What happened here that made the cops stand around? And here's the thing is, I don't even think that it's single cops necessarily, because not and when I say not their fault, I mean in a lot of police stations in every police station there's a very high a very structured pecking order about who says what and who does what. And so the police chief, listen to this, the police chief thought that it moved from an active shooter situation to a barricaded shooter situation. And so basically what he said was, he went, oh, the shooter locked himself in a room. Sick. We don't have to worry about it. Dozens of children are still alive and stuck in that classroom, in those two classrooms from the kid. Sure, yeah, just keep him in the building. Keep him in the building. And there are other kids in the building at the moment, right? Yeah, who gives a shit about the kids? Protect the perimeter. Yeah, protect the perimeter. Yeah, do that. It's so important. Yeah, so they just kept him in the building. So they said, we have a lot of time, so we can just wait this out. I don't know, maybe he'll just give up. He's already killed all the kids. Who cares? And so once again, while this is happening, while he said that this is no longer an active shooting situation, while this is happening, kids in the school, in the classroom, are calling the police, telling them that they're still alive and they still need help. And while that's happening, Uvalde officials denied claim that officers rushed in to rescue their own kids. There are claims coming out that Uvalde officers, when they arrived on scene and they had kids in the school, they rushed in to save their own children while doing this to other parents. Uvalde officials during the press conference on Friday morning denied a claim that police officers entered Robin Elementary School during the mass shooting on Tuesday only to rescue their own kids. Head of the Texas Department of Public Safety answered questions. Some asked whether or not several officers entered the school building on Tuesday afternoon in an attempt to rescue their own children during the active shooter situation, referencing a claim that has been widely circulated since Tuesday. When asked if any officers went to the school to get their kids, McCraw said no. Some on social media, including activist Sean King, began talking about the claim. His 1 million followers. Texas law enforcement officials now admit that the police went into Robb Elementary during the shooting to get their own kids out of the school. I kid you not. And so this was actually said that the police officers' kids were gotten out of the school by police officers by somebody who works for the department. This was one of the first things that they said. And it's been quoted before. They said that, oh yeah, one thing I want to stress is that officers were in that building within minutes, is that they tried to say. We have multiple officers that responded to the scene. 2 of the officers were shot. They took cover because you have to understand this is an active situation. So just so you know, the 2 of them were shot, but they weren't like deadly shot. They weren't like shot in the abdomen or something. they both got grazing shots. So they were bleeding and they were hit, but these people aren't like out of commission or anything. So they got grazed and they got hit with shrapnel and they backed up and that was like the end of their attempt to go get those kids for about 40 minutes until border patrol until a more specialized unit came in to do something. Did they run in to go get their own kids? With how much they've been lying about, I'm not sure if I can sit here and tell you that this hasn't happened, because all they do is lie, really. This is how poorly they handled the situation with those children. Now, when I said that the police did things so wrong that even them doing literally nothing would have been better than them intervening in some of these instances, this is what I mean. And I will tell you now, this is probably one of the most insane and saddest, most tragic mini stories that's come out of this yet. What happened to this one boy? He said, when I hear the shooting through the door, I told my friend to hide under something so he won't find us. He said, I was hiding hard and I was telling my friend not to talk because he was going to hear us. The boy was on all fours and hid under a table and had a tablecloth over it, which may have shielded them from the shooter's view and saved their lives. The boy shared a heartbreaking story that details about what happened in that room. When the cops came, the cops said, yell if you need help. And one person in the classroom said, help. That the shooter overheard and he came over to shoot the girl, the boy said. The cops barged into the classroom and the guy shot at the cop and the cops started shooting. While the shooter was still in the room, and while they know that kids are still alive in the room, a cop walks up and says, hey, just shout if you need help. And they tricked one of the children into revealing that they were still alive in the room for the gunman while they were still in the room to find them and kill them. They killed a kid. They tag team killed a child with a school shooter by tricking them into revealing that they were still alive and their location before stopping the gunman in the class. Yeah, they assisted. There was a girl in there. I think she was about 9. That girl who had a very, very good likelihood of making it out alive realized in the last moments of her life that she was betrayed by the people who she only could trust to save her life in that moment that got her killed. I only hope, honestly, that she died quickly so she wasn't that she didn't have to live with that anguish for very long. That's the only thing that I could really wish for there. Do you think at any point the gunman thought, what the fuck are these guys doing? I think that's, if any moment like that crossed his mind, I think that was that moment where he thought that, where he was like, what the fuck are these guys doing? Just so you know, they're taught specifically not to do that. Okay? I just want to let you know that they were told specifically, they're trained not to do that. They know that's something that could happen, that you could like trick the hostages to reveal their location and that they're alive, and only for them to be killed. They know not to do that. They still did it anyways. And before we move on to like from this situation in particular, there's one more story that has come out about a woman whose name is Miss Gomez, right? Uvalde shooter fired outside the school for 12 minutes before entering. Okay. Once again, like I said, there are big discrepancies in what the police have been saying and like what's been going on. 12 minutes. He was outside of the school for 12 minutes, firing bullets. 12 minutes. More than enough time for police to get on the scene. More than enough time for police to shoot him. More than enough time for anybody to do anything. And they still, for a guy who wasn't wearing any bulletproof protection, for a guy who barely knew how to use his gun, these trained professionals who get 40% of this community's budget couldn't take down somebody for 12 minutes outside of a school. It's horrendous. It really is. And this woman specifically, she talked about how she saw a father that was tackled and thrown to the ground, and the third person who was pepper sprayed. That guy that we saw that was that was tackled in that video, it was this guy. It was this guy that we're talking about now. And Gomez was handcuffed by the police. Once freed from her cuffs, Gomez made her distance. She walked around the building a bit away from where most of the police were, where most of the parents were, near the entrance. And she hopped the fence and ran inside to grab her 2 children. And she also made it out. So a woman, a middle-aged woman, completely unarmed, was able to save her kids from a shooting more than the cops were able to do. That is a Giga Chad mom, that's true. We continue with the timeline, as the police have been saying. And by this time, I hope you understand that this timeline that comes directly from the police has a couple of flaws in it. Maybe they should have let the parents in. Honestly, no. Here's the thing. They shouldn't have let the parents in. There's no reason for the parents to go in. You know why? Because it's ridiculous for parents to run into a school with a shooter completely unarmed. It's good that they stopped them. They should have gone in. They should have done something. It's their job. That is their job. That is their duty. They're supposed to go in, no matter, even if they have just their service pistol. No, and they were on break, and they were just walking around, and they just saw it happen. That is their duty, to run in and stop them, no matter what's going on. Any amount of time that they can take away from the shooter killing kids is time that's I don't even know how to describe how valuable it is. It's as valuable as any. It's as valuable as all the lives that you can imagine of young people in this country. It's as valuable as that, and they let it slip through their fingers. The same student calls 911 again and says that multiple people are dead. The same student calls 911 again. So once again, here's more again. This kid's just like, can somebody do anything? Can somebody literally do anything? Please save us. Please help us. Within 3 minutes, just keep calling the cops for them to do something, and they do nothing. And that's true. The Supreme Court did say that the police don't have a constitutional right to protect you whatsoever. Members of the Border Patrol unit arrive with shields at 12:15. The same student calls 911 again and says 8 to 9 students are still alive. A different student, this one in room 111, calls but hangs up when another student tells her to. The gunman, believed to be in the classroom at the doors, fires again. The first student calls 911 again. Okay, so just so you know, all right, this kid has been calling the police for about 20 minutes, about 20 whole minutes right now, and the police have still not entered the room. At 12:50, law enforcement breaches the classroom from a key that they got from the janitor. So they didn't even take down the door. They got a key from, they waited on the key from the janitor. Yeah. A lot of people may have not even been watching the stream for 20 minutes. It's very sad. On the 911 call, officers can be heard moving children out of the classroom. The call ends with the same child who called is outside. And this is at 12:51. Just so you know, all of this started at 11:28. 11:28 to 12:51. That's a massive time frame where the cops just allowed this shooter to have basically full range of the classroom, of 2 classrooms, really, not just 1, 2 full classrooms. And even kids were heard saying that there are rooms full of victims. Just so you know, we're not going to be playing any of that here. I'm not sure if any of it is yes, an hour and a half. I'm not sure if any of it is public. I do not know, and I'm not going to be finding out, because I'm not going to be playing that for you all. That's a little bit too much. I think so. But I think one thing that we can listen to is the Uvalde coroner, who gave a statement about what he saw in this room. I thought this was very powerful, and I wanted to listen to what he had to say specifically about what happened. Right? Lalo Diaz. Well, they call him Lalo Diaz Jr. And here are pictures. Because it's just one thing to say numbers. It's another thing to put like faces to these numbers. So here are the kids and the teachers who were killed at the school. You can see how young they are. Very little kids. This kid actually looks almost exactly like one of my friend's baby sisters. Diaz recalled the shock of walking in on the site of the slaughter that included so many small children whose parents and grandparents he's known for years, and one of his own high school classmates. I know both teachers and their husbands. I know probably 3/4 of these kids' families and their grandparents. It's just that type of community. They're just really close. Last week, that meant Diaz was the one who got called to the school to put names to the small, ravaged bodies of mostly 9 and 10-year-old children before they were autopsied. Nothing could have prepared him for what awaited him in the room. While he waited for the medical examiner to make the drive to Uvalde, Diaz tried to steal himself. It was 2 hours I sat there preparing myself for what I saw. Nothing would prepare me for what I saw. He saw firsthand what a semi-automatic weapon can do to kids. When he entered the school, he had the medical examiner. The medical examiner found the first responders had moved the bodies, separating the deceased from the wounded in order to get those who needed medical assistance. When I got there were children in 4 rooms, initially 2 rooms plus 2 other rooms, that he said. I went room by room to get a plan of what happened to make sure that we identified everybody correctly. Diaz did not describe in detail what he saw. If something you will never want to see, and it's something that you cannot prepare for. And so there's a big reason why we're not going to be showing anything like too crazy, okay? Because reading it and I think hearing it is bad enough. There is no reason for us to be going over any footage or anything, or like hearing any more detailed. But I did want to say this one last thing and then we can move on. The AR-15, which is a weapon used by the gunmen in Robb Elementary, is designed to blow targets apart. Its weapon is built for war. It's a weapon built for war, and when fired at a human adult body, its bullets travel with such fierce velocity that they can decapitate a person or leave the body looking like a grenade went off in there. Pierre Rees said, a trauma surgeon at the University of Arizona, told Wired. The carnage of the weapon leaves behind has become a signature in school shootings. Unfortunately, Diaz has seen firsthand what such a weapon can do to children with small bones and limbs. It made the process of identifying them much more agonizing. And like he said, he saw one of his old classmates. And so one of his old high school classmates was one of the people who died. He knew them specifically, and they worked in the school. And so he was even forced to identify as well as the kids that he knew that did not get a chance to grow up. Now, moving on from that, I want to get to stuff that happened a little bit after this happened. Okay. Well, Greg Abbott had a conference where when this happened, Greg Abbott, obviously the governor of Texas, had a conference, talked about how much of an issue this is, how horrible this is. But in his conference, he gave massive praise to the police. He said that the police did a great job, an amazing job. He said that the police saved so many lives, and we should be so thankful that the police were there to make sure that we were protecting these kids. But even that from Republicans who want to do everything possible to make the police look as good as possible, no matter what they do, they couldn't even stand up to what the police were, to the lies that have come out of the police department ever since this has come out. Because even Greg Abbott himself said that he was misled by the police. And so if you think that the lies that we were getting were egregious, imagine what Greg Abbott was getting. Imagine what they were telling Abbott all the way up the chain of command, because they didn't want to tell that guy that they were how bad they did, and so they lied to even him about everything that was going on. And as more details come out about the situation, the more even Abbott has to realize that he was lied to by his police. He said the information that was provided at the press conference 2 days ago was him reciting what law enforcement had told him beforehand. So he trusted the police. The police told him exactly what happened. He's like, "Yep, that's what happened," and they just believed it. If the police are willing to lie this egregiously when we can see what happened, imagine how much they lie when things like body cameras are off and things happen behind closed doors. Imagine how bad that is. Police, we 100% it, boss. It's all good. Yep, we did it, boss. It's all good. We did it, man. Don't even worry about it. We got it. One of the saddest things about all of this, honestly, is now like Uvalde kids, every generation now has their school shooting survivors. Like there's Columbine, and there's Parkland, and there's and you know, there's Sandy Hook, and there's so more. And we recognize all these names because of how bad they are. And I'm not gonna say they like keep getting worse, but they keep happening. Like, it's hard to conceptualize almost 300 school shootings since 2012. 100 a year. This is something incredible. How poorly we've handled guns in this country and mental health in this country. Because we'll get to a lot of conservative responses. Don't worry about it. We'll get to it. But now Uvalde, kids have been added to the list of children who are speaking out about how they could have been killed by a gunman, and as they watch their friends die around them, as conservatives and people like them keep telling them that it's actually their fault and they're the issue for keeping up the push to strengthen up gun laws so we don't have something like this again. As Republicans want to blame everything and everybody else except for the guns for the issues that keep happening, even mental health, as they cut mental health funding. But we'll talk about that. I want to get to what some experts have said specifically. So this is an article that was written. Experts say we can prevent school shootings. Here's what researchers say. It's not a good idea to arm teachers. I will tell you, if there's anybody who unironically tells you to arm teachers, you need to like grab them by the throat and start shaking them violently, because that's the only thing that I think could possibly knock the stupid out of their head. That's not good. The idea of putting like a gun in the hands of like a 130-pound teacher, and the only thing that's keeping like the weird kid from overpowering a teacher, taking her like gun or taking her key to go get like the school gun or something, is like a 130-pound teacher, like English teacher. Nah, dude, absolutely not. Get out of here. That's a completely ridiculous thing and will only make kids more scared to be in school. Raise the limits for gun ownership is a great thing. Texas actually lowered the age of gun ownership recently. If you didn't know, Texas lowered their age to, guess what? 18 over the last couple of years. They lowered it to 18. They said 18-year-olds really need to be able to buy guns. They really, really need to be able to buy 60 magazines, hundreds of bullets, and 2 ARs as soon as they hit 18. And so what's interesting is that because of that law, previously, this gunman wouldn't have been able to get the weapons that he used to kill all these children. But because Abbott and other conservatives and other gun nuts thought it would be such an amazing thing to make sure that kids as young as possible get as many guns as possible in their hands, in other states and other places where it would be illegal to get a gun like this, in California's gun laws would have not allowed him to be able to buy a gun like this. Texas decided that would be a great idea, and this is what Texas gets for believing that that would be a good idea. This is reaping what you sow. And I say that not by blaming the people in Texas. I say that by, it's just cause and effect, like what happened. Like those politicians were voted into office. Those politicians voted for these laws, and those politicians have not been voted out of office. That's what happens. Elections matter. I want you to remember that. School can support the social and emotional needs of students. One thing that I'm not sure if you knew actually is that there are more police in schools now than there are nurses and mental health providers. Not sure if you knew that, but that's actually true. In response to school shootings, instead of like taking care of mental health, we just throw more cops at it. And so even though a school may not have a nurse on duty all the time, they may not have a counselor on duty all the time, they may not have a mental health professional on duty all the time, they sure do have a cop on duty most of the time. And it seems like it hasn't even done that much work to help us recently. Why do we have to live in Gotham? We do actually live in Gotham. We just don't have any superheroes. That's the worst part about it. And there is the money. We can have the money. We have the technology to pay people to be in these schools to help these kids. We just don't care about mental health, and we don't want to do anything to actually stop it. And one of the last things that I want to touch on before we go here is this statistic right here, which is that because of this shooting, being an elementary school child is now more dangerous than being a police officer, because more children have been shot dead in 2022 than cops have in the line of duty. Remember how police always say that their job is so hard, it's so difficult, how they have to make split-second decisions, and instead of making split-second decisions, they made split-hour decisions here on whether or not to save these children, as they allegedly got their own kids out of the school. It is now more dangerous to be a kid because to be a kid in school than it is to be a cop now. So the next time you hear somebody say that police's jobs are so difficult, remember that it is more difficult for your like cousins to send your baby cousin to school every weekday than it is for a cop to put on their service vest and service pistol and go out and, I don't know, go like club to death some homeless people for dime bags of weed. Yeah, being a pizza delivery guy is more dangerous. Being a landscaper is more dangerous. Being a fisher is more dangerous. Being a logger is more dangerous. There's lots of things that are more dangerous to your health and well-being than being a police officer. But cops keep wanting to take all the glory as they allow children to eat more bullets in a year than they do. How is this compared to the amount of unarmed people killed by police? If I remember correctly, there are about 2,000 police killings a year on average. I believe, if I remember the statistic, it's about 2,000 a year. And I think it's a couple hundred of those people are unarmed a year who die, if I remember correctly. About like 200. Libertarians be like, just ban public schools. That's true. You want to stop school shootings? Have you ever heard about just like banning schools? Dumbass forehead. They got more mad at Ethan Klein than 17 kids dying. I didn't see what happened exactly with Ethan Klein. I do know he was talking about, I do know he was like arguing with Tim Pool for a little while, but I didn't see what happened with him. I was worried about like police responses and other stuff like that. So I haven't seen it, but we could look at it sometime. He said they should bomb the NRA. Listen, some people would say that is a based sentiment. Some people would say this. Anyways, Ethan Klein's positions are not always my own. Sometimes they are, sometimes they are not. Sometimes they are, but sometimes they are also not. It was a joke he rolled back. What a curious joke. It's a very interesting joke. Political violence bad, ooh. Political violence do be bad, but also ooh. He meant glitter bomb. Ah, yeah, that's what he meant. We don't advocate for political violence on this stream. Yeah, he should have said someone should have trolled the NRA. Now, I don't know anything about bombing the NRA, but I do definitely think that the NRA deserves some trolling. And if you don't necessarily agree with that, we'll get to that, okay? And we'll get to what the NRA did and said when they did their talk right after this. Should have said in Minecraft. Yeah, should have said in Minecraft. Should have said in Roblox. That's true. The NRA, I do 100% thinks deserves to be trolled quite hard. At least he apologized and backtracked some bad jokes on like a Pool and Charlie Kirk. Trolling can be pretty fun. So we talked about how the police are not very trustworthy when it comes to what happened and what they did and what they say about what happened at Uvalde and their response to it. Now, if you wonder how little we should trust them, take a look at this. That once again isn't even complete. The 12 times Texas police changed their story of what happened during the police shooting that left 19 children dead. As of this being written, which just so you know was about like 3 days ago, 4 days ago now. 12? Yes, 12. Some people are like, they've changed the story 2 times, 3 times, 5 times. No, it's been 12. There have been 12 instances of the story, and not just like little time differences. I'm talking like things that just didn't happen. Them just making shit up. We can go through it. Uvalde initially said the gunman was in custody. If I didn't know this, but apparently when it happened at like 1:06, okay, and just so you know, they killed the shooter at 12:50. So about 20 minutes after they knew for a fact this guy was dead. Yeah, they made a Facebook post about how he was actually in custody. 1:06 shooter in custody. He's not in custody, just like all the kids that you let him kill. So they're just Facebook posting, yeah, we got him, boys. Don't worry about it. We caught him. We stopped him. No, absolutely not. Nobody actually confronted the gunman before he went in. At a Wednesday press conference, the director of Texas Public Safety, McCraw, said that a brave resource officer engaged with the gunman. At that time, gunfire was not exchanged, but the subject was able to make it into the school, he said. However, on Thursday, Esklin said that was incorrect. There was not an officer readily available that was armed, that he said. And on Friday, McCraw added that the resource officer was not even at the school when the shooting happened. So we've gone from a resource officer was at the school, shot at him, and tried to stop him, but couldn't stop him, to the resource officer wasn't even there, didn't even exist. They literally made him up because the resource officer was off the school grounds and he came onto the school grounds when they called him and said that there was a shooting at the school. And like we said before, he passed by the shooter and didn't shoot at him because he didn't know he was there. He thought the teacher at that moment was the shooter. How quickly the gunman entered the school. Police have been consistent with their details that the attack on his grandmother happened before the shooting and his crash at the funeral home. But police initially said the gunman was confronted before going into the school. On Thursday, Escalon said the gunman was firing outside the school at 11:40, leaving a 12-minute window that was unexplained. 12 minutes that he was just left there to shoot at the school. He was not confronted before he went in. Police arrived at the scene quickly but backed off for more than an hour. At Wednesday's press conference, McCraw said the bottom line is that law enforcement was there and did engage immediately, but they did contain him in a classroom. So they didn't contain him within a classroom. He contained himself within a classroom, and then they said that they contained him and that there was no more kids that were in danger while they were getting calls from kids in the school saying that they were in danger. Alvarez, just so you know, Alvarez is the guy that we talked about earlier who said that police went into the school to get their own kids out earlier. It's in an interview with Today that he empathizes with the speed at which police reaction. He said the police responded within moments' notice. He also said that the officers were without hesitation and tried to make entry into that school, but were stopped when the gunman fired at them. But on Thursday, police said that the gunman had not been killed by the U.S. Border Patrol agent until 12:40, raising questions about what happened in the roughly hour between the shooting began and the gunman's death. According to the new information McCraw released Friday, 3 local official police officers got to the school at 11:35, just 2 minutes after the gunman initially entered the building and opened fire. 2 of the cops were grazed by bullets and they entered the school as they entered the school. The latest description, McCraw said the police exchanged gunfire was when the suspect until 11:44. By 11:51, the police sergeant federal agent arrived as of 12:03, and there are 19 officers there at 12:03. But remember, they didn't kill him until 12:40. Why didn't the cops stop the shooter? On Wednesday, Alvarez said that the police began breaking windows and evacuating people as the gunman barricaded the windows until more relatively heavily armed officers arrived at the scene. The first narrative did not make it clear how long this took. The hour-long discrepancy was revealed on Thursday. Once again, the hour-long discrepancy was revealed on Thursday. This is 2 days after the shooting took place. So they didn't know that the cops let this happen for almost an hour until 2 days afterwards. When asked on Thursday, officers didn't take down the shooter as he was in the classroom. He said that the authorities didn't engage sooner, and he said it was a tough question. He said, "Man, that's a real tough question. You're asking me why we didn't do our job? That's a really difficult situation. That's a tough question. Thanks for that. We'll circle back with you on that one." Parents began sharing that the cops outside the school had refused to go in and stop the shooter, and parents were restrained themselves. Once again, Abbott said that he was misled. "I'm livid about what happened," Abbott said. Texas authorities' news briefings often left reporters in the public with more questions than answers. Even as of Friday, it was unclear if 911 dispatchers alerted the police at the scene to the children still trapped in the school by the shooter. The police did not say ultimately convinced the tactical team to breach the classroom and shoot the gunman. So just so you know, they're not even, as the kids were calling in the school that they need help, they're not even sure if the dispatchers told the police that the kids were even still in there. So the police honestly at the scene may have thought that there weren't any kids there. They weren't being told anything. And so the dispatchers were just on the phone with the kids, not telling anybody else that kids were still in the room. And the complete line of questioning broke down utterly. The line of command broke down utterly without anybody understanding what was actually going on in that room and in that school. And so those are the lies that are being told by the police that we are stuck with at the moment. What actually happened? And that's the question on everybody's mind. A week after the shooting took place, what actually happened? And because of the police's constant lies and misinformation, we don't know. We don't know what actually happened. Because as of today, the story changed again. As I told you that wasn't even a complete list of what happened, let me show you what came out very recently, today actually, a couple hours ago, did you all hear conservatives and people talking about how this is partly a teacher's fault? You all hear about that? How it's basically like a little bit of a, like, they're not gonna say it's her fault, but they were like, yeah, it's a bit of a teacher's fault why this happened. And what we mean by that, are you kidding? No. We'll get into like Republican responses in a moment. They were saying that yes, I heard that. They were saying that it was a teacher's fault. They said that the doors were left unlocked. Okay? And what specifically they said is that a teacher left a door propped open with a rock to go get something from the parking lot. And that was the story for a week until today. And this is what came out that actually happened, because surveillance video came out that proved the police wrong. The teacher propped open the door minutes before the gunman entered the school to go grab her phone from her car. She heard shooting, called the police, and hopped the fence because she was scared what was going on. She didn't know what was happening. She was yelled at by the guys who were shot at initially at the funeral home that there's a guy with a gun there. She called the police, and then she ran back to the school and removed the rock from the door and closed the door to let the school know that there's a shooter on the school grounds. A lawyer came out and said that the teacher did not leave the door open at Robb Elementary. She ran back, she did, to let the school know that there's a shooter. She did not leave a door open. She did not leave everybody wondering what happened. And she's had to get a lawyer to clear her name because the police, even though they aren't naming her, the police keep saying that it is her actions that led to the shooting and not their fault. So they blame this on a door? Yes, they actually blame this on several doors. And we'll get to that. What conservatives like talking point because of this has been on just doors and not guns. Like, the problem here is definitely not the fact that a kid was able to get a gun and shoot up a school. The fact that the issue is there are doors on schools that you can even enter it in the first place. Yes, so they have an actual war on doors. We'll get to it, I promise. She saw the wreck. She ran back inside to get her phone and to report the incident. She came back outside with the phone to call 911. The men at the funeral home yelled, "He's got a gun." She saw him jump the fence and he had a gun, so she ran back inside. She kicked the rock away when she went back in. She remembers pulling the door closed while telling 911 that he was shooting. She thought the door was locked because the door was always supposed to be locked. She did not leave this door cracked open. It is not her fault. While police and Republicans were busy blaming her as like the unnamed teacher at this moment, for being the one who left the door opened, and she let the shooter walk in to kill those kids. And the police, they did so much, but where does this leave us? Police are not to be trusted. Like, we talk about this every now and again. But I want to tell you this now. Police are not to be trusted. Like, almost ever. Honestly, I would say basically ever. Until it's been like independently proven, there's no reason to trust police officers in these situations. They will always lie as much as possible for their own gain, because a lot of the times, without other people intervening, without other people recording, without other people in there to check them and to look over their shoulders, they'll be more than happy to lie, to cheat, to steal, to make themselves look good as other people die. That's just what they do. And this isn't because they're just like abnormally evil creatures or anything. They're just people. But they've been given so much power and so much influence, and they've been hyped up so much in this country of being heroes, that they can't lose that hero like aesthetic, because that's a big part of like who they are. Even though at the end of the day, you're right, they are just kind of government sponsored terror gangs who have no obligation to help you whatsoever, and who would be more happy to allegedly grab their own kids from the school and sit and wait as other people's children get picked off by an insane shooter that nobody in like civilized society should be able to just get their hands on. There's no reason to have a gun like that in normal society. You're not using it for self-defense. I don't think I've ever heard of an AR style rifle being used for self-defense in my entire life. It's not. It's used to kill children, and it's used to go to the range because it's so fun. I love when I shoot my AR at the range. That's the only thing it's ever used for. Okay, be honest with ourselves. To kill children and to goof around at the range, and that's basically it. There's no reason for it to be in like normal circulation, and for God's sakes, there's no reason for 8 million of them to be running around the country, waiting for a new person to pick them up and to take more children's lives from us. No one needs ARs unless they're fighting off drug lords. That should be like the police's job, to fight off drug lords. You're not getting in a. I don't know. Do some people think that, and I'm just so you know, I'm not talking about you 50. Some people think that they're like, yeah, you need 30 to 50. Maybe you need to kill 30 to 50 feral hogs. Why would we only want them to have guns? We're not talking about only guns. We're talking about ARs specifically. We're not talking about guns holistically. I'm also, I don't know, personally, after all of this, I'm a little bit on the no semi-automatic weapons train. Personally, that's what I'm on about at this moment in time. After all of this, after reading and looking at all of this, I'm kind of on the no semi-automatic weapons train. I think that's probably like a much better outcome. I think it's way harder to do a school shooting with like a bolt action rifle than it is for like a semi-automatic rifle. This is a semi-auto, as I said, maybe a little semi-auto ban. And listen, not all pistols are semi-auto. Ever heard of the flintlock, dumbass? That's what I have to say about this. I'm very sorry for all of the parents and everything. We're going to talk a little bit more about how to fix these issues, how to talk to them, what you can do. But for this, that's all that I really have to leave with you all there. I just want to let you know everything that happens. It is completely ridiculous and only proves more that the back the blue, like America's finest sort of idea that we have about police is more and more wrong than even we knew. I will have to say, I have a very, very low opinion of like just your average cop and their like responses to these things. But I will tell you that this has made my opinion of them go even lower. And honestly, they didn't have much room to work with. I had very low expectations for them, but wow, have they surprised me in all of the worst ways possible. I hope they get held responsible for it. Will it happen? I don't know. We're going to have to get the truth first. And it seems like listening to them isn't something that we need to do if we actually want that to happen.